Okay, let's work on this proof. LK is equal to 5, JK is equal to 5, and segment JK is congruent to segment JL. These three statements are all given statements, and I went ahead in my figure and I labeled the sides with their measures, and I've also used tick marks to show which segments or which sides of this triangle are congruent. Okay? And let's see, before I start arriving at the proof statement, which is segment LK is congruent to JL, let's make a plan. Let's see how will I be able to reach this proof statement with these given statements. Okay, so let's see. If LK is equal to 5, here it is, and JK is equal to 5, they have the same measure. So right away what pops in my head is that those two segments are congruent. So I'm just going to write that. I'm just going to state that here. We're not writing our two-column proof yet, right? But I'm just making a plan of how I'm going to reach that conclusion. So right away I can say that LK is congruent to JK. Okay? Just because I see that their measures are equal. And by the definition of congruent segments, I can state that they're congruent. Okay? Now that I have this congruent statement, let me go back and see what else do I have in this figure. Well, it tells me that segment JK is congruent to segment JL. Okay? So right away I see a connection between what I've concluded with these first two statements. I made this conclusion, right? And now they're giving me more information. They're saying, look, segment JK is congruent to segment JL. And I see right away that there's a chain here. I see that if segment LK is congruent to segment JK, and segment JK is congruent to segment JL, what pops into my head right away is the transitive property of congruence. I can conclude that segment LK is congruent to segment JL. Can you see that? And look, I've reached the proof statement. So here's my plan. The plan is write down the given statements, make a conclusion using the definition of congruent segments, and then use that other given information and use the transitive property of congruence, and you're done. So let's go ahead and write out our first statement. Statement number 1, LK is equal to 5. And I can write all of my given statements all at once. I can do that. And that's okay. But I like to write my given statements as I need them. Okay? So I'm going to do that. I'm going to write them as I need them. So LK is equal to 5, JK is equal to 5. And since I already drew out a plan, I know that, let's say this is given. I know that my second statement here is this conclusion that we said I can reach automatically, knowing that these segments have the same measure. Automatically I can say that segment LK is congruent to segment JK, and we mentioned the definition of congruent segments as my reason. And then for step 3 in our plan, we went back and looked at what other information they were giving me, and I used it. I said, well, let's plug in this other given information that I have not used yet, and voila, this is given. And all of a sudden, I see a connection here. Segment LK is congruent to segment JK, and segment JK is congruent to segment JL, so I can conclude that segment LK is congruent to segment JL. And I can do that by the transitive property of congruence. And when I use the transitive property, I like to reference it and say, well, what did I use the transitive property on? I used it on statement 2 and 3 to get to statement 4. So 2 and 3 made up statement 4. And there you have it. That's it. That's how you prove this one. I will see you in another video, and we will still be proving with segments. I'll see you in the next video.